Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmas, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, over me hills to Pocondre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Yeah, focus on Liberia, for Liberia, Liberia, for Liberia, yeah, 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 yeah. From Monday to Sunday, from Monday to Sunday, it's focus on Liberia. Talk about home affairs, hey, in diaspora, current affairs, hey, reliable information, history, ooh, talking about culture, yeah, politics, education, entertainment, yeah, business, sports, advertisement, articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday. Focus on.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is Between the Headlines. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Tonight, Between the Headlines, we're going to be interviewing a diplomat and former president of the Press Union of Liberia, Mr. Gabriel I.H. Williams. Mr. Williams is part of the many voices in Liberia that been there, done that. He knows a thing or two about what's going on in the country. He has covered events as a journalist. He has also held the highest office of the Press Union of Liberia, looking from above to see how freedom of speech, the press, the freedom of the press, are protected. He also worked as a diplomat. In fact, he was the Minister Counselor for press at the for press and publication at the Liberian Embassy here in the U.S. So when he speaks, we listen. For some time now, he's been writing articles as an individual, and also has a former president of the Press Union of Liberia with his other colleagues, that is other former presidents like Isaac Bantu and Emmanuel Abalo. So we read a lot of these articles, we have followed their activities, and we decided to invite Mr. Williams here tonight so we can talk a thing or two on national issues. Mr. Williams, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you so much, Dennis. It is my pleasure to be with you this evening and to engage with you and through you, your audience. I am delighted to be with you this evening.
And we are also honored to have you. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be here so we can talk about Liberia. Let's start by, talking about your role, okay? I introduced you as someone who's been there, done that. Tell me a little bit about people who don't know, who are going to be watching this. Tell me, my audience, why they should be listening to you. That that somebody who has, been there, done that. So give us a little gist into who is Gabriel I.H. Williams.
Well, I am a career journalist. I've been a journalist all my life, from high school all the way through. As a matter of fact, when I was in high school in the 1980s, they had an organization called Inter High School Association, Journalism Association. At the time, the now late Alhaji Kroma was Minister of Information, and I was part of that program. And then LBS also had the high school special with then the producer. She's the chair of the Elections Commission now, Councillor Deviata Brown. She was the head of that program, and they brought together some of the best English students and aspiring journalists, reporters from various high schools in Monrovia and its environs. And that's how I came through, for 3 years, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade at Detroit High School in Newtown. And by the time I graduated, I got a scholarship to go to Ghana to attend the Ghana Institute of Journalism. And that's how I ended up at the Daily Observer, because one of part of the requirements to go to Ghana Institute of Journalism was for you to have some preliminary training, at least no less than 6 months at an established media entity. Earlier, because of my journalism activity in high school, Mr. Best had been invited to speak at one of our press club events, and that's how we engaged. And my school principal sent me to Mr. Best, and that's how I started. I am so grateful to God for Mr. Best, Mr. and Mrs. Best. They afforded me the opportunity. I never ended up going to Ghana because of the chaos. Those days, Ghana was a very disruptive country, civil uprising. But because I worked so hard within 6 months, Mr. Best decided to keep me on as a reporter to train me further. And in fact, he asked me, young man, you are so good. Is there anybody else that you can find at your school in Yucatan who is just as good, who can who can serve as a correspondent for the Daily Observer? And this is how I went and got Philip Wissett, the now late Philip Wissett, PNW. Philip was a year ahead of me in Detroit. He was when he was chairman of the press club and editor-in-chief of the school press club, I was his deputy. I went to Newtown, brought Philip to the Observer, and of course, in no time, he became one of the best reporters online. As God will have it, I won an international fellowship, during which I served as a journalism scholar at the United Nations headquarters in New York, under the Dag Hammarskjöld Memorial Fellowship, which is one of the most prestigious awards in international journalism. I actually won that fellowship, coming first place among more than 380 journalists from around the world. And I was just a mere reporter, and I was actually one of the youngest in my early 20s when I won that fellowship. So it was really amazing. And since then, the rest is history. Work with a newspaper here in Sacramento, the Sacramento Observer. After I left Liberia during the war, came here, worked with other media entities, worked with Liberian-oriented media entities. We set up the Association of Liberian Journalists in the Americas. I was one of the founding leaders. They let us, in fact, organize a conference, at the endowment. I wrote those letters, and with Mr. Bantu being the chair, we organized our conference to establish the ALJA here in the United States, during which Mr. Best was elected the president. So let me stop there, and then any further question we can continue.
Thank you. And now we have the Press Union of Liberia, of which you are a former president. Also, Mr. Isaac D.E. Bantu, someone who I listened to as a BBC stringer when we were growing up, and also Mr. Emmanuel Abalo, someone who I listened to on the Catholic radio station when I was in high school. All three of you are former leaders of the Press Union of Liberia. You've been issuing statements. Tell me, what's the weight? Today we have the Press Union of Liberia operating, and you guys, the former leaders, you are writing, you are talking on national issues. Tell me, why do you decide to keep talking, and what is the impact? Are they listening to you? If I listen, that's why I call you, but do other people listen to you like I do?
Well, let me just, take a biblical backdrop on this. During the days of the prophets, it was not, they were not concerned whether people were listening. When things were happening, they foretold society. They proclaimed what God said will happen. And based on the reality of the day, it's pretty much like what you have religious leaders, who speak on national issues or international issues, who are, no matter what it is, they are there to provide, critical information on the state of affairs. And so we as journalists, it is the same thing. And that was the purpose of which the press union was established in the first place. For example, of Mr. Stanton Peabody, it was the arrest of Mr. Stanton Peabody in the 1960s during the Tubman administration that led to the establishment of the press union for the journalists to begin to advocate collectively in their collective interest and the overall interest of Liberia. And the PUL has continued to champion that cause throughout the ages, since its establishment in the 60s, especially during the years of the war. Our brutal civil war, when the union faced one of its major challenges, because the organization, it disintegrated into two parts. As you know, that the country was divided into two parts. During that time, it was Emmanuel Balo and I who were the leaders of the press union. Isaac Bantu was the president of the union. Emmanuel Balo was the vice president, and I was the secretary general at the time of the outbreak of the war. When the war broke, and Mr. Bantu was in serious danger because he almost got killed in the last civil unrest under Mr. Doe during the 1985 uprising, Emmanuel took over. And we had two different organizations in two different parts of the country. And so after a while, after years of consultation, a couple of years of consultation, Abalo and I actually made a visit to Banga at the invitation of Mr. Taylor, during which we reunited the press union. And both organizations, in fact, got reintegrated before the country itself got reintegrated with the removal of the barriers, at the front line, those kinds of things. So yes, the organization has stood up, and journalists have always, stood up for the cause, to bring about, democratic governance and the rule of law in Liberia.
Thank you. So before we get into some of your statements that you wrote, let's talk about the press union. How is the press union of Liberia today? I know many things have changed. Right now, things were more organized, but the media landscape has changed, where you have online media, you have individuals that have their own platform, you have everything, right? Citizen journalism is high. Right. So how is the press union of Liberia? What is your relationship as former leaders? How is the coordination going? Most of the time, I'm asking this because a lot of time there is this generational tension where we look back and say, oh, the people that are pressed today, they don't know anything. And then the young people today look at the older people and say, these are the people that spoiled the country, they didn't do much. Now we are the new breed, and we're doing the best. So I know that tension exists everywhere. I don't know if that's the same with the press union, but tell me a little bit about the operation of the press union and your relationship as former leaders.
Yes, friendly to the extent that we are, as actively or regularly engaged with the current leadership of the press union and the media press corps. I haven't, since those kinds of, you're an old guy and I'm young, I'm we the new guy. I haven't sensed that. The focus has been, how, the how you call it, the professional well-being of media practitioners can be enhanced, in terms of career developments, in terms of improvement in their work conditions, salary, and stuff. And yes, as former leader of the press union, when we were there those days, you had media houses like the Daily Observer, Footprints, And even the new Liberian newspaper, the government newspaper, that was very highly competitive. And editors, all the staff, these people, they receive handsome salary, and on a regular basis. Every week, every Monday, you sign up for your per diem. So that's how we grew up. And to bring it home more personally, yes, I didn't tell you because sometimes it's not everything you talk. I am actually the founding editor of the Inquirer newspaper. Most people remember Mr. Wisa
Yeah.
because he served a longer time. But this uh, uh, person you see sitting before you, I was the founding editor of the newspaper when it started. During that time, another editor who actually trained Philip Wisa and myself and many of the other journalists at the Daily Observer, T. Max Thier. You may remember he was a well-known sports editor, and then he was news editor of the Daily Observer. T. Max was the idea to form a newspaper when the Civil War broke and the Daily Observer had been destroyed. Mr. Beth and his family had relocated. All of the media infrastructure basically had been destroyed. When ECOMOR came and then they stabilized the place, they were running a government newspaper reacting. They were running this newspaper Touchlight. I think it was Touchlight from the Prince Johnson base. But there was all this imposition of Prince Johnson in the affairs of the newspaper that few of the journalists decided that we needed to establish an independent newspaper. That's how Tim, as being the head of the group, brought me on board. We went to the first meeting. Tim is presiding over the meeting, and Tim looked, and he said, I'm going to do something that will surprise you guys. He said, then he called me out. He said, you all know that I train all of you, including Gabriel. He said, but I think Gabriel can be a better leader of this newspaper, based on how he's conducted himself over the years and the leadership quality he has exhibited. If I myself lead this paper, yes, we'll move ahead. He said, but I think we have our chance of sustainability is better under Gabriel. And you won't believe it. I was so shocked. I resisted. We went back and forth, and then eventually, he just said, look, I don't want to use the expletives. Come and take the responsibility now. And I said, look, Chief, you know me, I'm real, I'm a real deal when it comes to this. You are the boss for all of us here, and you are giving me this responsibility to exercise it. And I'm running this newspaper, and I have decisions to make and actions to take, and you interfere, you yourself, I will fire you. Any action I will take it. Do you agree? He said, yeah. Do you agree? He said, yes. In the presence of everybody. I said, okay, I will take the job. And that's how I started off as the head of the Inquirer newspaper. And then at some point in the war, when my life got really threatened, I left the country, and then Philip Wisa took over, and he was the head for these many years until his passing recently.
Thank you. That takes us to your paper. You've written press statement issued by former leaders of the press. In one of those papers, you talk about the case involving the Prophet Key, right? So your statement endorsed the Supreme Court's right to punish contempt, but you also warn against constitutional overreach. Where exactly do you draw the line?
Yes, indeed. The conduct of this fellow is totally unacceptable, and that's a challenge the Liberian media has right now. The social media thing that you've alluded to quite a few times, where you have anybody who has a phone now, you can get a microphone, and and people are just abusing this. Freedom of speech is not about that. Where you can get take to the airwaves and use the kinds of words these fellows are using, and they think it's acceptable. And you find more and more people following them. And you find politicians, so what I'm learning, to my real disappointment and disgust, about the money changing hands, involving politicians in these kinds of matters. They help to feed the lion. And then so that when the lion come home and you start eating everybody, then you want to continue it. This is what it is. This fellow's behavior is totally unacceptable. As much as The Constitution provides freedom of speech, as we indicated. There are responsibilities. It comes with responsibility. And in journalism, Dennis, I hope we're not doing a little bit of journalism class here. You learn, one of the things you learn, they say freedom of speech doesn't mean that you can stand in a crowded cinema and shout fire. Isn't that what we learn in journalism? That you can. So you take it from that broader scope. We have a greater responsibility, and you can't have this man doing it, and then you have this prevailing situation now where anybody, in addition to the manpower and man cost and power cost, they just come and level, charges, accusations against people, try to smear people's reputation. This is totally uncalled for. You can't do that in a civilized country, real civilized country where the rule of law prevails, like here in America here. Which country in this world here is more free than America? But Dennis, you see anybody able to do something like that here, where you can, somebody can just get up and go crush somebody's mom and accuse them? And the court gave him an opportunity to come and defend himself. What did he do? He submitted himself to the mercy of the court. He pleaded for mercy. Asked them to temper justice with mercy. So there was no defense. And you have young people. You are talking about young people here and influence. You have a lot of these young people following, someone like that. Thinking that this behavior is it. And many of them are taking it. You go on social media, it is a new norm. So I think the court's action, not I think, but it's our considered opinion as former leaders of the PUL. And mind you, no one has struggled for press freedom more than us. Many of us have been beaten. And I can show you scar on my left hand here from being beaten by soldiers under General Gray Allison. Okay? General Allison stripped me naked publicly for refusing to disclose a source. That's conviction. If you're doing something, and leaders of the press union, from Mr. Best to all of these people, Mr. Dapple, Rufus Dapple, the legendary Dapple, who they sent to Liberia for writing articles that may refuse to rescind the how you call it, the essence of his articles. And because of his refusal, to change course, what did they do? They kidnapped him and banished him to Liberia, Mr. Best, because of standing the course. How many times they burned down the Daily Observer newspaper? The man went and founded the first independent newspaper in the Gambia Observer. What did they do? They grabbed him and deported him because he refused to play to the game. Eventually, that ruthless regime will fall. Just as the brutal regimes we had in Liberia, they all fell over time. So yes, the media must always stay the course. But when we have these kinds of things happening, we cannot tolerate it, where people are abusing the freedom. Having said that, though, our caution, we caution our leaders about the table mounting agreement to which Liberia is signatory. And of course, the well-known Camara, law or media law and stuff that we have in Liberia. We hope there will continue to be adherence to those laws, and people will not hide behind subpoenas, to impose sanctions as a way of intimidating free speech, curtailing free speech, intimidating the journalists. That is, we will find out unacceptable. Right. And that's why we issue that question.
There's a fine line there because everybody, the abhorrent behavior of this fellow, and it's like people don't like it. We all don't like what he does and how people are emulating it, and how, as you correctly put it, there are some even politicians that are benefiting from this vulgarity, and so they continue. And so when he was sentenced by the Supreme Court, a lot of people say yes. But do you see? You talk about this the overreach. So Liberia abolished libel and sedition in 2019 through the Abdullah Kamara Act of Press Freedom, Are you concerned that the use of contempt, that contempt power could be a backdoor route to recriminalizing speech? Because if you look at the opinion of the Supreme Court, they say, well, you better insulting people and importing people, and now you have insulted the Chief Justice mother, so we are sending you to jail. So are you afraid that that may happen? And another thing that we found out is even his sentence, the 6 months in jail, 180 days, that is not in the statute. The statute said 30 days, but they gave him more time. But a lot of people seem not to care because this fellow's behavior is just repugnant.
Yes, speaking on behalf of my colleagues and myself, ICD Bantu, Emmanuel Diabalo, speaking, continue to speak on our behalf on this matter. It is our considered opinion that, this thing can be used, as a channel, backdoor channel, to suppress press freedom. As much as we are disturbed by the contemptuous behavior of this gentleman, we also are mindful of concerns that have been raised, or other alternative opinions that have been provided by lawyers, who have raised a very important point as well, that in the whole legal process, they saw, for example, the Chief Justice, who is the aggrieved party, if you call it the complainant, or however you call it, and then on whose behalf the full bench of the Supreme Court acted. He presided, over the hearing, and so the argument, rightful argument though, was raised that the court served as the how you call it, the judge, the jury, the jury, and the judge, and everything, the complainant, the jury, and the judge, basically. So so then where is the right of the accused? So and that's a very valid argument. It is against that other aspect, that we are cautioning. Mind you, we are not lawyers, but we're Liberians, and we who are sound enough to understand that these things, people can easily use them against the common good.
Thank you. Let's go on to another thing that you mentioned in your statement. That is the national fuller security, national fuller security of Liberia, ethnic tension, right? You call on President Ouattara to issue an immediate public statement on the national fuller security of Liberia. As of today, has the government responded adequately? And if not, what is the risk of that continuous silence?
We've written a number of articles. The failure of the government to communicate effectively with our people, which is usually a failure in many African countries, could cost us more than anything. When people, no matter how good you do, especially for a government that has tried as much and they're doing well in the area of infrastructure development, such as road and the electricity expansion across the country, and of course in the area, in the diplomatic area, which is also my area of specialty, with Liberia, being elected as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council. These good things are happening. But in the absence of adequate information to the Liberian people, you risk losing everything. That's why we're saying they need to pay attention. They need to structure their communication. The good things is the information that go in there. Then what is the purpose?
And we also, the contradiction between the Justice Minister order and the press secretary. You mentioned that also. You described this as a serious administrative and security breach. What accountability should follow for that kind of internal government contradiction?
You see, again, as a professional journalist, that's where I would recommend that the government, if they haven't done it, they need to seriously, the Ministry of Information, they bring together all the government line or communication agencies, entities, bring everybody together, bring the public relations officer together, bring the executive management, press secretary, and all the people, bring everybody together, formulate a communications strategy. I'm not sure whether they have it. I'm not sure whether they even have workshops or orientation with respect to coordination. The press secretary, to make long matter short, was totally out of line. She's in the office of the president. And I say that as somebody who has access to the president now. I have my share of access to the president during Madame's time when I was at the Ministry of Information. First, at the level of deputy minister, and then she sent me to DC, where I was until her tenure ended, where I could talk to her on a regular basis on issues of national importance or affecting our country at the international level. These people, they need to be more alert. And at every point, and as I said, there's a need for a communication strategy. As to how you going to coordinate government information. When we came to information, we did that. And I bring that. I don't like to speak in the void. One of the reasons I was brought on board was the government was facing serious challenges during the first year of the administration, following the arrest of Mr. Charles Taylor, the former president in Nigeria. As you know, Taylor had just left office. And so a good number of the independent media in Liberia, had support for Mr. Taylor. So there was that acrimony, long-lasting acrimony between the government and that section of the independent media, to the extent that one of the guys from the Taylor side who had some issue with a close aide of President Sirleaf leaked certain compromising picture of this man in the media. It's Charles Taylor, oriented media. Other people in the government saw this as an opportunity. Since these people, they are anti-going, I just want you to listen to this story so you understand what I'm talking about, okay? These people, they wanted to use this as an opportunity, to shut down the newspaper. And on that basis, with the pressure from the church and everything, the Minister of Information went and prevailed on President Sirleaf to shut down the newspaper. And before he went, I had told him seriously, over my strenuous objection that this decision was wrong. I was his deputy, but this was wrong. I'm a former leader of the press union. And I had extensive contact at the international level with these international organizations. While I was at MICAT, we were in regular contact with a lot of these people. And definitely, when they shut down the newspaper, these people came calling. Even the American embassy came. And so I mustered the courage and decided to go to the president. I sought audience with the president and told her that this decision was wrong and the national and international impact they were going to have on the country. National impact, it was completely against the Liberian Constitution. And therefore, to arbitrarily shut down a newspaper was against the Liberian Constitution. And therefore, the decision was patently wrong, illegal. And so after I explained everything to the president, she understood it. And with immediate effect, she ordered the lifting of the ban with immediate effect. And this, I just gave you an example. So when these things are happening, they have influence. Over time, what happened? Many of the child seller or professional young men, the president brought them on board. Many of them, some became ministers, some became diplomatic affairs. Some of the very people who were contentious. So what is the reason we got to even deal with all the acrimonious stuff? I'm just saying that to say that they are, or they are a press secretary. She should have consulted. The president is there. That's the point I'm making. I could have gone, a call press conference after I told the minister, not to do it, and he went and did it. This was creating all the international implications. The American ambassador even came to find out what was going on because it was going to affect our country. We have, consultation with the ambassador. Now convey that, send him the outcome of that meeting to the president. Okay? So I could have gone to my press conference, but I didn't. I went to consult the president. And from there, we found a common solution. So to make long matter short, she should have consulted, before coming, to issue a public statement countering the position of the Attorney General, who represents the position of the president and the government of the Republic of Liberia.
Right. And she said that was a personal opinion. But you talk about the NICAD boss, the Minister of Information, bringing these people together, doing workshop, coordinating, formulating a plan. But I think if you look based on what I'm following, is the minister himself has a problem, right? Because some of these utterances come from him. The last time when Mr. Alexander Cummings criticized the government, both the minister and the deputy, the way they responded was not in accordance with their offices, right? Quite recently, when the minister of public work was criticized, the minister came out against swinging, right? So, do you see, and because you were at the ministry, right? Do you see that central control coming from the Ministry of Information, or do you believe that's where the problem is?
Well, I have also followed those developments, Dennis, and I find them unfortunate. And like I said, I always like to use my own experience because I don't like to shoot in the blind. When I was at the ministry and I would come back, the immediate post-Charles Taylor era, look, there were guys, they used to write articles, not just, those kind of, got articles then, about the president, about somebody like me, because of, the work that we were doing. But we never took it personally. There is not one time, look, I can tell you, and Senator Dillon, and Senator Snow, Dallas Dillon, and Senator Edwin Snow, when they were on the other side, the NPP guys coming in, and many times, Truth FM and other radio stations where these fellows and myself, we were in studio arguing on government issues. I don't think any of them can tell you one day or where at the Ministry of Information press conference where people criticize the government, where I had Gabriel Williams, or during that time where any of us as leaders would go and attack those people personally. That's not what you're supposed to do. It is not your role. I used to say that there is no, while I'm here at the Ministry of Information, there is no us against them. And I repeat that. I used to say there is no us against them. There is no us against them. I used to say that over and over. And why? The Ministry of Information, I'm able to serve everybody. And everybody would not agree with me. Everybody would not agree with the position of the government. There are people who are different, even in the face of statistics and evidence. And I will give them their due. My job is to go and present the government position. Look, in a matter of months, we were able to control the media terrain in terms of creating the enabling environment, the healthy working relationship with the journalists, the press code, and all the other underlying,
someone may say things are different now. I mean, you didn't have the social media outrage, you didn't have the social media kind of warfare that we have today. So in addition, or to counteract that, you have to be tough, right? Government now have their own media. They will have a media, something called Class Reloaded, which is a government propaganda stuff. You also have almost every ministry has its own press. You have the newsmakers now becoming the news reporters. But that's the reality of today. So you must have a different approach to counteract the different reality. What you say to that?
I think we are shooting in the blind. We are shooting in the blind, and this is the problem in Liberia. People come and they do their own thing. There's a structure. You got government, established government entities. You got a news agency, Liberian news agency. You got New Liberian newspaper. You're talking about modernization. You see all these live streams that you guys are doing, focus on Liberia. Why do you think New Liberia or Liberian news agency? Why do you think they cannot transition the government entities? We see some progress at LBS in terms of the infrastructural progress, But how can the government do more? How can you bring the public relations officers of the various ministries and agencies and orientate them as to how you coordinate government information? You can set up any kind of reloader. They're shooting in the blind. They need to harmonize their effort. If not, the government is going to fail and fail. And I'll give you an example though. When Mr. Weah came, when they came, I was at the embassy. I was still at the embassy. My first trip to Liberia, from the beginning, I noticed that they needed, to streamline their government information dissemination. I carried a draft communication strategy to present to the minister. I never met him. Because every day they went to Weah's house instead of coming to work. Weah barely went to work. Weah stayed home and played Ludo. His boys go there, hang around. After the afternoon, everybody leave. They go home. And you won't believe it. My brother, this man was a hardcore Joy Weah supporter. To the point, if my brother ever had any disagreement with me, it was for Weah business. That man died, and I went to bury him. The weekend we buried him was a weekend. Somebody called me to tell him they saw, I was in Liberia at that time. The draft communication policy is still with me. They said, oh, they heard that I have been replaced, and the rest is history. They refused to pay me even my rent. I'm telling you, $16,000 we took me to court here in Washington, D.C. Joe Weah and his group. So you see what God can do? And you see them running up and down. We are now where he is. You see he has been reduced to a share of what he used to be. God don't sleep. God gave him the opportunity to run the affairs of our country. The man will go wear bandana and go in studio. Why you go sing more? This is the time now for them to go do it. You can't play with a country. This is what I'm saying. The affairs of our country, me, I take it seriously. And as much as I would like the government, to give me relief, and I'm just telling you these things because I refuse to yield. As much as I want relief, we will continue to speak up on what concerns our country. Because as journalists, if we fail to do it, we're going to wake up one day and that place is up in smoke. So we are there to write, and I'm there not to sing praise to nobody, but to help you provide guidance. The leaders who appreciate it, they will. And there are few leaders who have. President Seti is one of them. And you want me to give you one more example, Dennis?
Go ahead.
Great. Let me tell you something. Why I appreciate Madame so much. And I can understand somebody who spent so many years abroad working in the international system. When the poverty reduction strategy, after the draft, when the government came to power, a national development plan, interim poverty reduction strategy. From the RPRS, the interim poverty reduction strategy, the government decided to put a poverty reduction strategy, which is a framework for national development. When the draft was introduced at cabinet, the minister was not in country, so I went to represent us, the Ministry of Information. All the ministers, they gave their input, their preliminary feedback, acknowledge the Minister of Finance, the draft and this and that. And I sat there, I didn't say a word. President said, well, Mr. Williams, I know you're not a minister, you're here to represent your minister. But what do you say? You need to say something. So I said, yes, madam. And I gave the pleasantries and everything. I said, madam, but I noticed something in this document. I said, there is no communications provision. We prepare this document for our people. But if we don't find a way to communicate it to them, then why is it use? This is why the national development plans always fail, because we develop it and we keep it to ourselves. Look, when I landed, the minister tried to dismiss it. When she got to talk with President Kim, the president said, Minister Williams just made a very important point, and he's a journalist. So I think let's listen to him. Mr. Williams, yes, I want you to expound on that point again. What do you mean? And I lay it out, bro. It was from that, the president, and I recommended the president, let's involve the press union of Liberia, the communication component. Let's involve the Publishers Association, and we did that. We brought them on board. And it was from that engagement that Reptel Pele, who was then an aide in the president's office or communications aide, the president directed her, for them to put out a national campaign, for us to find a slogan, a name for the national development plan, the poverty reduction strategy, how we call it. This is how I think the person was from Bombing County or from Cape Mount who came up with that name, Live Liberia. There was a little price for that. They won that prize, and we announced the name. And then, so when the poverty reduction strategy was launched, along the way, when we go to press conferences, the journalists, then when they see issue, when they bring it, our point was, guys, but we involve you in the first place, right? We all bearing this thing. So it minimized the criticism. If not, they would have beat up on so much. But every time they came, it became a collective responsibility. If there was any error in terms of information dissemination, we said, guys, this is why we got your own. Because we didn't want to do this alone. And before you look, everybody start working together. They are not doing it. I don't see that. Yes. So if you don't have if you are not coordinated, all the good things you're doing, you're wasting your time, bro. I'm telling you.
Thank you. Let's take a 1-minute break. When we come back, we'll talk about other national issues because we want to learn a lot from you. Right. Welcome back to Focus on Liberia. This is Between the Headlines. My guest is Mr. Gabriel R.H. Williams, former leader of the Press Union of Liberia, also former Minister Council for Press and Public Affairs at the Liberian Embassy here in Washington, D.C. Mr. Williams, there are a lot of other issues, things that are happening, right? We have yellow machine. We have the demolition. We have Ivanhoe and contracts that have been signed. We have all kinds of things going on. Let's start with the yellow machine. I think this is on Facebook. You will see me in my yellow machine too. I think yesterday was yellow day. Did you wear your yellow? Why or why not?
Well, again, I don't know where it was a public pronouncement regarding the need, for for people of goodwill to wear yellow. I would have found, one little yellow here, but by the time it was going, given the time difference between Monrovia and Sacramento, California, I was still in bed when, the yellow machine parade were already proceeding. But, I saw people in their, beautifully attired in their, yellow, and it was just beautiful. It was cool, though. It was cool. The yellow machine, fever not easy, you know. So and it's good for people to be excited. Our people want development. It shows that they yearn for development. They yearn for their roads to be better. They yearn to ride on paved road. They yearn to have access to the various parts of the country. So I think the spirit is good. I hope the government will keep it up. You know, again, for me, being a media person, I hope they will not let this opportunity pass, Dennis. There is a public relations strategy, opportunity in this, where you can use this, to create awareness that your government is at work. But if you're not doing the things that need to be done, and you expect that, they didn't know the road that was building Corwell. Everybody got to know that somebody, by some means, government building road in Corwell. You, the government people, you're supposed to tell them, you're not telling them. The time I will take to castigate government officials, I will be focused on telling them the various parts of the roads that are being fixed, what part of this, that. Look, spend some time in the studio at ELBs, the various media houses. When I was in Monrovia, and people would tell you by 6 o'clock, on Mondays, on my LBS, first thing to give an overview of the weekend, going into the week to prepare the Liberian public. And then by the time from LBS, Army Radio, and then Truth FM, Star Radio, you won't believe it. In a day, I will make, contacts with all those entities. In addition to radio, but that's my job. I'm not going to be sitting in how you call it, at the ministry. No, I'm in the studio. I'm taking phone calls. That's the job. So again, it's a different world.
They rather tell the story themselves, so they don't even give us press statement. I mean, why would the government be doing something? Why don't you send press statement around to all the media institutions, including focus on Liberia? But here's my question. The public has limited information about the contracts, the companies involved, and the financing terms of this yellow machine. What questions should Liberians be asking before celebrating the arrivals of this yellow machine? Before I wear my yellow, even though I'm in yellow, I'm in my yellow machine, driving it from Greenville to my hometown. We used to walk 8 hours to get to the car road. So I'm so happy to drive that yellow machine to go to my hometown. But what questions should we be asking at this time?
Well, for me, I don't think it will be a question. It will be one of expressing the expectation that at this time now the government is supposed to be delivering as per the result of the yellow machines. Deliver the expectation. They should. I think they should move from question to expectation. Our people they can't keep asking questions from people who are supposed to provide services and they're failing in one way or the other. I don't have patience for that. I don't. They can't. You have the information. Find the people who will be able to help you. Look, it's not everybody who can work in government. But in my own time, again, from my limited experience in government, there are a lot of consultancy programs, opportunities that were made available so that everybody can go and administer information or this and that. But you bring people from different background persuasion. They got different consultancies from both from Liberia and abroad, where they can go to Liberia and participate in different things to help in government capacity. But you have a group of people who want to hold on to everything. They're not performing. And then come 2029, they're like, people will make their verdict. This year is a very critical year.
Yeah.
Very critical, yeah. And you
But
talk
given,
about, the question about response. When things are happening in the government, they're not proactive. You didn't hear much from the president himself, or
what,
even from the mansion.
but what I
Say
hear you
something.
say, what I hear you saying consistently is the information gap, the communication problem. That's what you are saying. Some may say, well, that's Gabriel area. That's why he's focusing on this.
Of course, when you go to, why do you think when you say you go to a hospital, who they're gonna bring someone like Jack from the street to examine you? That's a doctor examine you, right? And the doctor is able to look at you and say, my man, you're not well. I told you I cut my tongue the other day, right? And I went to the hospital, you know, and my doctor, did his examination. The medicine the man gave me before you look and hear me here talking to you normally. So that's it. Why I didn't go to anywhere? I'm a professional. I can see the weakness. I can see the weakness. And I can look between now and July with good media reorientation. You hear the people singing different song between now and July. When I went to Liberia, madam, the first time when I arrived in at the mansion, when I arrived in Liberia that weekend, that Monday, there was a ceremony at the mansion. So I arrived that Sunday. I think Sunday, yes. Monday, I went to the mansion. I went to the president when I went to meet her. The woman said, thank you, Mr. Williams, for coming. Please see what you can do. I know, you're a hard-working person. This thing here is choking us. I said, madam, I'll see what I can do. And I started running. This kind of thing I'm telling you, and the evidence is there. Many Liberians from those days they will tell you, say, they always used to, there are many they will remember this phrase that, we inherited a dysfunctional system of governance. People used to make joke without that one. There was a reason why I use that phrase. And that dysfunctional system keep holding the country back. The system, look, you set up a good system. Before you look, the other people come, they change it around. There's no adherence to processes and good governance. And for the better of me, I don't have people who you just want to talk loose talk. You don't want to plan anything. For me, it got to be planned. It has to be properly executed. People who are working with me, I hold them accountable. And I hold myself accountable to my superior to make sure that the work gets done. So, this is my frustration. People sitting on gold mine, then it's in terms of information. And then they want to be blaming other people, be cursing the opposition, people who are pointing out weaknesses. Come on.
Yeah. I like when you say the time you take to explain what the government is doing, you have less time to worry about what the opposition is saying. I made a assertion that if you look in the Bible, if you look at the Ten Commandments, it do not. I'm thinking, what if instead of saying do not, if they focus on do, because sometimes the do not will never end. But if we focus on the do this, it's easier to do than not to do. So if the ministry will focus on, or the whole if communication team will focus on giving us the information, because I'm from an IT background, right? And when you say information, you have pieces of data that put together to make the information. So the information ministry, to me, is not propaganda alone. It's information, it's data. So if I want to find out anything about the country, if I want to know where the good mountains are, if I want to, it's like the marketing. So why are we not getting information? There was I sent my reporter because at some time we wanted to register focus on Liberia. And we go on the website, there is no information as to what is required for registration. And when we ask, they say, okay, come to the office. And why do we have to go there? The information should be readily available. So Mr. William, based on your background, tell me about information and what really the information ministry is supposed to be doing.
The Ministry of Information basically is supposed to be focused on, you know, spreading information about what the government is doing, the government policies, programs. Basically, that's the main focus. But there's a challenge though. That ministry has always been underfunded. Our people have always taken information as a second thought, as an afterthought, rather, afterthought, not as a priority. It has been, some of the examples I was just telling you, where, and I'm not saying it, to belittle anything, but it just shows you, what's my where, it's not that important. Or just other suggestion about media, And so these things are happening. The media now, for example, in Liberia, it faces with a very critical situation, financial situation, trained manpower. Many of the few trained people, because of the financial constraint, have to go to greener pastures, seek greener pastures for survival. And I talk to you as somebody who is invested in the media. I told you, the Inquirer. I am the sitting chair of the board of shareholders. We have to worry about salaries. We have to worry about all kinds of, operational activities. The life of the institution. The Inquirer now is one of the few newspapers in our country where, journalists are getting salaries on a monthly basis regularly. Where you got health plan, where when you're sick, you and your family, you're going to go to the hospital. Those are things we learn from the dealers level. Under Mr. Best, Mr. and Mrs. Best. And we carry on to ourselves. So keeping that alive, that's our challenge. Because of the financial strangulation, with all the social media thing, like you said, as we speak, we're trying to, and I'm talking about transitioning. Right now, we are focusing on our focus during this year as to how we can transition the Inquirer newspaper to be more accessible online. We have begun that process. We have insisted on the management that this must be done and pressuring them. We can't continue. The Inquirer can't go back. We've been, in the lead at the top, during the years of the war. We can't go back now. We can't collapse because of this pressure, the financial pressure, and the realities that we deal with. Other people that cannot deal with the pressure, they are going asunder. So, the media landscape is completely changing, like you said. So we have to reposition ourselves under the new dispensation, with the new reality, the technological age, how we're going to be relevant. If not, we're going to phase out.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you are just joining us, this is Between the Headline. My guest is Mr. Gabriel R.H. William. He's the former president of the Press Union of Liberia. If you want to join the conversation, 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403 #. We are discussing national issues. Mr. Williams, and you will see from the comments that anytime you start to talk, right, whether you were part of the post-war government, it could be President Salif government, President Weah government, and now you are. So the question will be, that man looking for a job, he was part of that CDC, or that this person and that person. How do you, and you've been in government before, I haven't, right? So people say I still hustling. But how do you respond to people who say that job you're looking for?
Well, they're coming again look for a job.
Oh.
I will ask this way that they're coming again looking for a job. I ain't qualified. Am I not qualified? It will be my response to them. I'm not going to allow pettiness and petty minds to take me off course. That's it. If the things are not going well, they're not going well. Who don't like it, whatever is their interpretation, I'm not going to worry about that. You know, in this world, if you want to be a journalist, you must be prepared. That you're not going to be received by everyone. You might even deal with a lot of hostility, extreme hostility. So that's it just fly off my shoulder.
The flying.
I'm a
Authorities have
very
been
qualified
demolishing
person.
houses.
My childhood then will be remember and just to conclude on that, you remember the famous scientist Archimedes?
Mhm.
Yes. When Archimedes was when he was building momentum, he was gaining global recognition. You know, there were people when you were talking about the rotation of the world and everything. There were people, like somebody said, man, that man, he just looking for attention. What can he do? What he told them, he said, "Give me a place to stand,
And
and I will move the world.
Mhm.
Give me a place to stand, and I will move the world. You want to see good performance? Give me a chance. And all the mediocrity will be situation of the past because it's sickening. It's keeping our country backwards. We have the opportunity. Look, if Liberia were properly operated, managed, it would be far more better, given the resources that have been expended, the millions and millions and billions of dollars. What do you get? The country that cannot even provide basic services for its people. And so when people talk, qualified, good people, decent people, when they tell you fine people, they don't let them stay in their trash. But as much as we can, we'll bring light. Nothing is going to stop it.
Thank you. Dr. Edison Paladino said when a country's information ministry is seen only has a machinery to counter opposition position, then insults and innuendos are what we get. In other jurisdictions, you have information vans in rural areas which lack so media to deliver government plans and programs. He continues, in Liberia, people stop looking for work when they have found a job. Hard work, folding your sleeves, and being conscious of result is not a Liberian culture. Uh, don't say, some of you guys, your strategy cost Liberia a huge setback. Philip Bala is watching us from Pennsylvania. Thank you, Philip, for watching. Abdul Douglas said, from what I have gathered, the entire exercise by the Fula community was intended to be a vigilante group, but the way it was presented came across as though they wanted to create a separate security entity. These are the few questions. We have more. Salami Boamasi, our biggest problem in Liberia is the justice system. This is why the man went to jail. Talking about Prophet Key. No, Prophet Key, according to the Justice Ministry or the Supreme Court position, they say you have been insulting prominent people and including women, and now you have insulted the Chief Justice and the Chief Justice mom. That's what is in their opinion. Everything else is what we think. We will go to our phone line as soon as people are calling in. But Mr. William, another issue is this constant demolition. We saw first there was a eviction from Hotel Africa area there. People were, and then we saw the army eviction from 72nd, taking people and demolition all over the place. Just yesterday, there was another demolition in New Georgia. Most of the time, what they are saying, two things happening. Either the government is taking an area where people have squatted for so long, or you have people that are being away and people went in their area and built, and they've been there, and the court battle has been going on forever. And now, with the people coming back and winning that battle, they will just take the bulldozer. We also saw that same demolition at the CDC headquarters. So there's demolition all over the place. I cannot say, that I know the details of every demolition that is going on, but you follow these things as well. What is your assessment of how this is being handled, and where are the voices defending those affected?
You see, Dennis, this is where I'm always worried about leadership in Liberia. Proper coordination. The government is about service to its people. I don't have any problem with the demolition. If people, build in other ways, or if they took somebody's property and it has to be retaken, but there has to be a process in place that as they are moving, do we have any emergency social services to cater to those people, to help them in some form of relocation after they've stayed at these various places for so many years? Is there any package at all, compensation, any something that you can give them? Families that have been left homeless, these children, they've been pulled out of school. I understand some of the places that have been broken down at school. These children have been left out of school. We want to develop, what is the purpose of a government that takes the public revenue? Is it to line people parking up into fattening frogs, to be chartering flights, traveling around the world, to be making big speeches while the people are homeless? You have been covering this development. Focus on Liberia. I have not seen any other media outlet. I have not seen any humanitarian contribution from the government to these affected areas, to these affected people. So why is the government collecting taxes? Why do we run a government that doesn't cater to the needs of our own people? When somebody's sick, they can't get good hospital. No good hospital in the whole country. And we're running around, so we got $1 billion, a budget. We ought to be ashamed of these kinds of behavior. Over time, these things will not hold because people are getting to understand better. You get $1 billion plus budget, you can buy a few cans of milk for mothers who are homeless with their children. Work on all this demolition. There's no social service program for them. Children are out of school. There's a tough way. It's a sickening African way of doing things that keep Africa backwards. But where I live here? The many of the people who are homeless, they are homeless because the shelter that the government got for them, they don't want to live there to be under certain restrictions. And even as poor as many of these people have, there are social service programs here about welfare, this and that. Where even the man homeless, he got a little bank card in his pocket. Every month, the government puts something in some account somewhere. He won't stay in the street and get drunk and be the audience. But at least if he wants to find a place, he can. Why we can't do the basic thing for our own people? So I'm just saying, look, the government is doing well. They got to clear these places. But what is our share of responsibility for our own people? If it was your mom or your pa, or you a parent, and your children, you ain't got nowhere to be now. Because I'm hearing that some of these people, nowhere, they're homeless. They're homeless. Come on. Why we keep running our country, operating the affairs of our country, and you hear about all the budget, every day they're talking about budget and budget and budget. This is sickening. We need to change the way we run our country. To a country that cannot provide services to its own people is not a normal functioning country.
Mr. Williams, yes. These things did not start now, right? What are some of the structural issues for which attitude like what you just described persists over time from one administration to the other? And what can we do to change?
They didn't start now. And it's always that little sick excuse that we make. It's just Oh yeah, remember, Janice, I just made a point that when we were, during by that time, I used to say, a lot of people remember that, we used to say we inherited a dysfunctional state of governance. Remember that, Janice?
Yeah.
It comes to the point right now, the very point. We always say yes, we inherited this, but when we come, how much of a change that we make? Now, even if you try, the system is such, Janice, you will try your best, and they come after you. They try to take you down. They try to take you down. If you go good programs, they will discourage it. They will undermine you. They will try to destroy you. You put good programs in place, by the time you leave, a jack just come and they start blame. This is how it's been. So the country, look, the leadership situation, that's the leadership structure in our country, much is left to be desired. And what bothers me right now is how the country is drifting more and more toward, more and more towards being cash cow for individuals who find themselves in the political echelon. Where the budget and everything else is about, how much money that goes here, there, to feed political interests of individuals who are in power. This is unfortunate. Then we are building ourselves on the faulty sand. And they were doing it, they all want to lose. Have they not known, seen the examples from the wartime? People who thought they had it, and then all of a sudden, everything is gone. When they come to power, pretty soon they forget, and they want to continue the same old ways. We got some real terrible ways when it comes to leadership. There are people who are ready to mortgage the interests of the country. There are very few people who will speak and be exemplar of what they speak. But there are many others who will, they speak all the fine to, and they are just as corrupt as anybody else. The corruption is the main thing killing the country.
So what can we do?
Put in place system of accountability. And those of us who go to serving government, for God's sake, make a commitment that this is not what I'm going to do. I've worked in government for 12 years for my administration, Ministry of Information, the embassy. I was at information when a major scandal broke that took the minister down, that led him to court. Gabriel Williams was not named in any of those things. I also handled money until I left. Right? I made a conscious decision, Dennis. I made a conscious decision that I was going to try not to get myself involved in anything for a few $100,000 business here, there, to spoil, the things that I want to do. So that's it. It's an individual decision. Looking at, looking at the opportunity and say, no, I'm going to let it pass. There are some of us who didn't get involved in any of these things because we also got audited. We all went through these things. But why is it that, I never got dragged to any court for anything when I got audited, when I have sat before auditors, how to answer questions. But it's a mindset where these people, they think that they can go to government and make as much money. That's why some of them, when they leave government, when you see them, you don't want to even, you can't even recognize them. They look like a shadow of themselves.
Thank you. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., join me and the ULA Women Empowerment Committee as we discuss their efforts to say no to drugs. They are currently going on they are doing a fund drive, and so they're going to be here. So tomorrow, join me 7 p.m. Eastern when I may Toze and a team so we can discuss their efforts. Join us as we discuss SOS, Save Our Souls, Say No to Drugs. That's tomorrow, 7 p.m. right here on Focus on Liberia. And I'm not sending anybody there. I myself will be here to interview them. Mr. William, we have discussed a lot. I want you to prepare a 2-minute conclusion. So prepare that. Let's take, while you think about that, we're going to play our FOL jingle.
From the shores of West Africa to the Liberian diaspora around the world. This is your voice. This is your vision. This is Focus on Liberia. We tell the stories that matter most, from Mount Nimba to the Atlantic coast. Truth in our words, hope in our hands, building tomorrow across our land. Voices rising bold and free, shaping thought and destiny. Knowledge is power, let it shine. Liberia, your time is now. Focus on Liberia.
Mr. Gabriel, you got a lot of commendation here. Yvette Sifa said, excellent show. Thank you, Mr. William. You need to come back. And definitely we want to have you back. Abdullah Dukle said, Mr. Gabriel, you are one of the very few principal civil servants of the Republic of Liberia. You serve with distinction and dedication. Riverside Pro said, the Press Union of Liberia is dead. We're going to talk about that. Let's see how Mr. William can revive it or tell us if it is not. I would say I follow your tenure both in Liberia and in Washington, D.C. That's why he said you are principled. Dr. Padua said, at the point is repeatedly made, a people that abhor hard work and knowledge will continue to suffer. Out of 119 hungry countries in the world today, Liberia is 112, according to the UN 2025 report. River says, still on the Press Union, he said, why do you think the press corps in Liberia is divided along party lines? How can such division affect credible and reliable journalism? So before you go to your closing, I want you to just comment on the few questions that have been raised.
Well, there are so many, but let me just say thank you to all of those who have been watching and responded in the way they responded. And they basically, the point that I try to make is that our country got huge potential, but oftentimes, we underutilize our potential. We underutilize our potential. And as a result, the country is underdeveloped. As somebody who spent a lot of time at the international level, people used to ask me, the coming Liberian international people that I work with, why is it that your country is so great? You got all of this, Liberians are good, but why is it your country is so backwards? Why is it you treat one another like this? So the way we behave to one another is critical. We treat one another. And I just gave you an example, Dennis, of the The homeless people with children, they're not going to school. Those little children they're Liberians. Nobody knows their future. So who's paying attention to make sure that the children who are out of school find to go to school? We keep exercising this kind of behavior. And more so, when people have the opportunity to serve, they abuse that opportunity. Corruption, misrule. Somebody come and see good system in place, they don't like it, or for selfishness, they change it around and throw everything back. So these are some of the things in Liberia. Until we change the way we do things, the way we treat one another, it's going to be difficult for us to achieve the progress, that we're supposed to be making. We are, our own problems. Nobody else.
Okay. You're closing. We have 3 minutes.
Yes.
I want to give you 2 minutes. And if there's anything any issue, the issue are many. So if there's any issue that we didn't raise that you want to talk about briefly, you can also do so.
Yes. I mean, all I have said, I've already said. And so I don't need to belabor that. One thing I just need to make, and we come on a humanitarian ground, got to do with this, the Claudia Foundation. I have written an article and have, called on the government, to kind of back off, excuse me, from the way, they're proceeding with the investigation of the Claudia Foundation. And here is why. I do know that, yes, the government, is doing everything. I'm not opposed to the government investigating, all these criminal elements from Mr. Weah, administration who plundered the country, and they're running up and down. Some of them, every day they're on Facebook. Now, which they have locked them up so that, they will not be here and be a distraction. I will say that I would have taken a different approach, though, to something like the Claudia Foundation, considering the world-class service they won't offer the orphan children, the Liberian children, orphan children from poor, destitute homes, where they are at that school. If that 10 million somebody stole, she ain't care to Jamaica. She ain't care nowhere else. With all the money they charge, we have people, the allegations about theft. If that money was stolen money, she invested it right there in our country. Look at that campus. Look at the school. Since President Sally went there, he had afforded me the opportunity to follow the activities of the school. In fact, that was the reason why I wrote the article that I wrote calling on the government to tread carefully with this organization and not make it seem like this is a witch hunt.
But can the organization be a little more transparent?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, look, in Liberia, the way people do things, I would have wished for organizations like that. This is why I want for the government, and I hope there will be intermediaries where the government and these people can sit down and find a way. To be frank, Dennis, I would prefer for the government to provide annual subsidies to that school because of the children who are there. And we should support them instead of.
We don't want the Nathaniel McGill kind of thing that, hey, if I steal money, I can't get it, and I'm living here. We don't want a door to be open where it's okay to steal. I'm not saying that Claudia stole, but I don't want the semblance that it's okay to steal as long as you can do the investment here. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
I'm not saying that. I am just saying that in light of the fact that this institution is already operating, we got these Liberian orphans who depend on as a lifeline, I will approach it differently.
So it doesn't matter if the money was stolen or not, as long as she's
They are
doing
not
good.
going to establish whether money was stolen. There's an investigation process,
Okay.
that is ongoing. So I will make that clean. But I will rest on the fact that this woman built a state of the art world class school right in Liberia that is catering to orphan children. And nothing else is going to change my mind on that. There are people who have stolen millions and millions and millions. And what have they done to it? There are people who have been first lady and first lady and first lady year in, year out. What have they established? But this woman came and she get it set up. So, for me, I just look at it from that basis. Others have stolen their millions. But what did they do with it? So I'm not justifying one evil for the other. I'm just saying this woman built a school that is catering to orphan children. Orphan, poor children. World class. I don't care, even like 5 little girls in that school, they can be 5.
Mr. William, in all fairness, it is hard to distinguish that you are not saying to be Robin Hood is okay, because what I'm still hearing is you don't care where the money comes from as long as she's doing good, because other people stole or other people took money and they didn't invest it, but she, even if she took her own, if she got it illegally, as long as she's invested in Liberia, poor children, she's doing good. It's like Robin Hood. You rob the poor and feed the weak. Just make it clear that that's not what you are saying.
Absolutely not. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, we are dealing with the reality now. Whatever was the outcome of how the institution was built, let us not conduct ourselves in a manner that will lead to the breaking down of the institution. Since it's already built, let's find a way how we can all work together to keep the institution going for the good of the children. I'm not justifying anything that was illegal. I'm just saying, given the reality of where we are, why don't we find a common ground on how to proceed? That's all. For the sake of those children.
So can the common ground be, if it is established that the money was government money, for the sake of the children, can we take it from her and give it to a government agency to manage it? Could that be, I'm saying if it is established now, because for me, I'm looking at it like, if you were in power, if you're in first lady, or you are even president, you can take whatever money, use government resources, build something, and when you leave, it becomes yours. Wouldn't that establish that precedent?
Well, again, I wouldn't want to say more than what I can say, as a situation. I would just prefer for the government in the Cloudwear Foundation to find, to negotiate and find a common ground against the background of the institution. No matter what we say or what we think, the school is already there, catering to children. It is serving as a lifeline. So for the sake of those children, let's find a way to keep the institution operating instead of closing it. If you close it now, where do you take those children? What will be their future? I mean, and we were just talking about, places that have been broken where children are not in school. I saw some reports in the media, about, kids being out of school because of, places, their homes being broken, they ain't got no uniform or reading in some media outlets. So what's the objective? Okay, there's something that almost so money. Okay, let's take it from her. They're able to manage that place. The government schools in there breaking down. Yes, she's on Kawa there in the hospital. No care. Look at the way JFK looking. So, and then somebody, for example, will say, if you're running their private clinic, you say you will seize it. Can and then once you got, you be able to manage it. So, for me, that's why I say, let's find a common ground. One evil doesn't justify the other. Let's find a common ground for the sake of those children.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. You're closing. 1 minute, sir.
Yeah, basically, I would just, my closing would be to the government. As I was saying, I used to have this expression at the at the Ministry of Information that people still remember me for. While there are progress, while there are challenges, progress is steady. And I used to say so in the context of the progress the government was making, the efforts the government was making to redevelop our post-war country in the face of all the challenges. While there are challenges, progress is steady. Under President Bouaka, while there are challenges, progress is steady. And I mentioned that with respect to infrastructural development, but they are failing in articulating this progress to the people. They are failing very seriously. There's a serious gap. I have not seen any communication strategy. I haven't seen, proper coordination of the government ministries and agencies. And these government ministries and agencies have public relations officers. During our time, we brought them together. We had seminars, workshops, whatever, to create a coordination of government information, from public works to the health ministry to wherever. How these public information officers, press officers, how they're going to work with the information ministry, coordinate information. That's why in my capacity as Deputy Minister for Public Affairs, responsible, holding them accountable, and inviting some of their leaders to regular press. You see the regular press, the weekly press conferences, the Ministry of Information. We started that with regularity. It was something that we started, and it has continued throughout the years. We brought it. We made it regular. It was part of our effort. So there's a lot that can be done, but you can do it with all communication strategy. You can do it with all proper articulation. If the government, fails in the court of public opinion, it is because, they are not telling their story good enough. So I hope they will pay attention to that.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time here, and we want to thank our viewers for watching. Always focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and inspire. Until then, we're going to close with a song that says, whether you disagree with Mr. Williams or not, we are all Liberians. What is incumbent upon all of us is to do our very best to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Have a good night, and God bless.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home.